What's going on, everybody? It's Childish. We're back at it again. We got ourselves the next Theorycrafting Thursday video for you all today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. About a month ago, we started this new series, Theorycrafting Thursday, talking about the theories and thoughts on our guild, members in our EpicFail community in our channel, EpicFail Evolution. Now, we brought a couple of those things over the course of the last 4 weeks, and the next one here is definitely one that is going to be talked about for quite some time. Now, we got ourselves a member of the EpicFail Delta community, our co-leader in the mix. We got ourselves Badhands. How are we doing today, sir?
I'm good, Childish. How you doing?
Good, 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 very good, sir. So, if you guys are not familiar with him, you better ask somebody. Okay, he's actually been doing his YouTube thing for quite some time now. I have no idea why he got inspired to do it, but it's been nothing short of amazing since he's been able to provide us a really deep theory crafting conversations in our channel. So I had to steal him from the community to get out this updated speed tuning calculator for those that have been following my channel for quite some time. We're doing a revamp, giving people an update on what's going down. So, Bad Hands, I know that some of these people, are not familiar, with your channel. Why don't you give us like a couple of minutes here on, give us a little brief overview on what you like to do with your channel and what you're about.
I do a lot of Guild Wars videos. That's pretty much my focus in the game. So a lot of my stuff is set up for Guild Wars. I do some arenas. Occasionally I do some summons. And then I also do, every once in a while, I'll do monster spotlights on pretty underused monsters that I use that are pretty effective in either G3 or G1 Guild Wars. And then I'll also use some units that I show that might be used in like C3 to G1 arena as well.
There you go. Yeah, I probably one of the first ones that kind of caught my eye when I first got started out with you was that justification series. So it's really cool to see that as Lord knows, a lot of us use the same units time and time and again. So to have a different perspective on things is pretty darn cool. Let's see here. So the speed tuning calculator, as you guys know, for any of you guys that do theory crafting with regards to the PvP aspect, you get these units. You build them up with these high quality runes and you set them in there on the defense or use them in the offense and you're like, okay, this is working, but it only works to an extent. How can we improve that? What can we do to make it better? And speed tuning is definitely one of those answers to that question. So Bad Hands was so nice to share once again his speed tuning calculator, changed it once again to update it to make it a lot more user friendly for you guys. Bad Hands, take it away. Tell me a little bit about it.
All right, so last time we did a spotlight on this on your channel, it was pretty confusing to use, and I'll be the first to admit that. It was made for me, really, and I wanted to share it with the community, and it worked for what I was doing, but I got a lot of feedback, so I made a lot of changes, made it a lot easier for people to use everything and to find basically what speeds they need, no matter what speed their buffer is. On one page, they didn't have to go between pages or anything like that. So this is basically a very simplified version of it, and it works for pretty much every speed. The baseline speed that I have to use it is at 205, and we'll get into that in a second why that is. So this works for any monster that's over 205 total speed. So that's including towers, including speed leader skills, swift sets, everything. And the main thing about attack bar and speed units are that it doesn't matter if you have a 300 speed Bernard if you got nothing that will sync up to it. So the whole point of the sheet is to say, okay, I've got my 280, 290 speed Bernard. What speeds do I need to use to know that I'm not going to get interrupted? And let's say a Chloe is going to shield in front of me. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up that Bernard page. So we're going to head on over to there. Now, biggest changes I've made from the last sheet is I've taken away all of the buffer, enemy buffers, and I've given you what speed needs to be, or what speed the units need to be of Bernard. And then there's a little button right below the speed tunes that you can see is in bright red that says speed tuned and no, because we have no units in there. So obviously nothing could be speed tuned. And as well, as you can see, there is turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, turn 7, turn 8, turn 9, and turn 10. Now, what that means is that is the turn that your buffer reaches 100% attack bar. So when the game starts, everyone starts at turn 0, and then everyone gains 7% of their total speed in attack bar per turn. So if you have a really, really fast unit, it might be turn 4 that it gets to 100%. Could be turn 5, could be turn 6, could be turn 7. In my sheet is you don't have to know what that speed is now. You can just enter your speeds, and the sheet will know when your unit is going to max, and it will set up the rest of the sheet to accommodate that.
I'm trying to think here. Probably one of the most like misunderstood things, at least for me, when I first got it started, is that everybody started. They all started at a certain percentage, whereas the turn zero, like literally everybody starts at 0 attack bar. They don't realize that.
It's basically it's a attack bar game. So if you look at like right now, Bernard, who's in there, he's got 0 runes on him. He's got a swift set and a tower bonus, but he's got no runes. If you look, his total speed is 156 right now, and that tick percent, that 10.92 that is on him, is that's how much attack bar he gains. So he's going to gain 10.92, so almost 11 attack bar out of 100 per turn. So he would actually probably max on turn 10 because I think you'd have to be you'd have to be 11% to max on turn 9. So how he is right now with no runes, he would take him until turn 10 until he would max. But that's why I said the minimum has got to be 205 because that's when turn 7 starts, and that's a pretty normal number that you would want to be using. Like maybe it's a Violent Orion that's a little slower. Okay, we're going to start getting to 205, but that's when you really want to start going from there as far as tuning goes. Now, I will give you those numbers of when they do actually max on each turn. So for turn 7, it is 205. That's the magic number for turn 7. For turn 6, it is 239 total speed. For turn 5, it is 286. And for turn 4, it's 358. Now, I know like 358 sounds unobtainable, but a 300 speed Bernard with a Vanessa leader is going to be just about 358 because of his tower bonus and everything else as well. So the Bernards can reach turn 4, very, very rare, but it is possible. Kabila is a little bit easier to get turn 4 because of her base speed. But the big thing is that difference between turn 6 and turn 5 maxing, which is that 286, that is where it really becomes into play. Because let's say your Bernard is 286 and the enemy's Bernard is 284. That means you're maxing your attack bar a whole turn earlier than the other Bernard. You're not maxing at the same turn. You're maxing a whole turn earlier, so it makes it a lot easier to sync yourself up.
Right, and as long as you utilize applications like this to completely synergize your team, regardless if they're just a one turn behind, you can essentially still have 4 of your team go, and continue to go and basically go through the chain of effects. Now I know that Nemesis can play a role in it, but theoretically speaking, you should be able to take your team and go first, right? If you're all synergized.
If you got everything synced over the percentages that are on each sheet for each buffer, your whole team, besides Nemesis, will move before their other buffer goes. So what those percentages are, that is the speed you need to be of your buffer to make sure you're getting that first turn instead of them taking it.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. So we do a quick round of testing here with regards to a comp. Which one should we do here?
Since we're on Bernard, let's just go ahead and I want you to make up the runes on Bernard. So you can just enter whatever runes you want. Now, the only thing with this sheet is the reason I do have, hold on, let me click off that so you can actually edit it. There we go.
All right.
The only thing is if you're using a Swift set, you do need to enter the individual rune amounts. So as you can see, Childish right now is entering 25, 42. He'll keep going because we're using that Swift set. As you can see, we've already changed to turn 6. So that now we're doing turn 5 already. So we've already made a turn 5 Bernard without having to do too much work. And like I said, the sheet will automatically change and according to what we are using for a buffer. So makeshift Bernard. So when you're using Swift, make sure you put in runes. When you're not using Swift, you can just enter the entire rune value into rune 1. So like let's say your next monster is Seek. Let's just put in Seek for now.
Alrighty.
And Seek's base speed is 110. And then we got a tower bonus 15. He's not on a Swift set. And let's say he is plus 130 speed.
Okay.
Say someone got really... You can just enter it right in that rune 1 spot. You don't have to enter it in all the rest of them. So if he's not using the Swift set, you can enter it in on just rune 1 and it will work fine. So like right there, we don't even need speed on 6. And that's a fine amount right there.
All right.
So you can leave those blank as long as it's not on a swift sync.
Should we do Illusion?
Sure, let's do illusion. They're 103.
103. That's right.
Don't ask me how I know these off my head.
You are one sick
I don't
person.
even use my illusion anymore, and I still know his speed off my head. Now, let's say he is, let's say 100. So let's say plus 100 speed. So you can just type 100 in rune 1. Now, you can see right away that goes to 70% of Bernard Seek Illusion, so that speed tuned is still red. So if you look right below speed tuned, that unit's got to be 75. So we've got to bring them up to 75. So this is a good way to see how much more speed you need on a unit. So let's try 125, and let's see if that pushes us over. All right, so 125 does push us over. Is this one not set up to how it should? It's not. Okay. So for Guild Wars, I already found an error. Fail. So for Guild Wars, he would be synced. So again, this sheet's set up for Arena. So if we entered a second Lucian at the same speed, that would say speed tuned yes. But I already found a fail, so that will be fixed by when this goes live. But let's just go ahead and enter a second Lucian here. Let's put him at 103 with that 15, and let's put him at like 123, let's say. Okay, so there we go. So now he is speed tuned correctly. Now, when we go see the turn order, you will see turn 5 is the one we want to use, which is the green. So we want to follow those green boxes down, and that is where we are maxing our attack bar. So as you can see, our Bernard's the top green box. He is maxing before the enemy buffer. So he's at 108.15. The enemy buffer is set to be 1 speed slower than him. So the enemy Bernard is 308. So he is at 107.8. All right. So then turn 2, because Bernard buffed, Seek's at 143 attack bar, and the enemy Bernard's at 129, or enemy buffer, whoever it is. Third turn, that third green box down, that Lucian's at 159. The enemy buffer is at 150. And then fourth turn, we're at 180 and 172. So that's how you can see it doesn't matter what Bernard speed you put in there. As long as it's over 205, it will calculate you to the correct turn that you need to be using. It will be color coordinated up top, so you can see turn 5 is the green, so we want to use the green. If it was a slower Bernard and was going on turn 6, it'd be in yellow. So we'd be able to follow those down, and that's going to automatically change depending on how fast your buffer is.
Gotcha. And then with regards to the enemy buffer, I think we talked about this the last time we did the video. You have it preset to a certain amount of speed of standard for the enemy buffer, or is this something that we're going to have to change as well?
I have it preset to 1 speed slower. So he is at 308. If you want to change it, you can. I still have the old cells on the sheet. So when you make your own copy, they're all hidden, so you can do them, and you can change that yourself if you want to. Like, let's say you know a specific speed of a monster, and that one just seems to be getting every time. But if you are synced to max on, let's say, turn 5, over that enemy buffer, which would be your 75% speed tune for Bernard, that means you're going to be faster than any Bernard you outspeed, or any buffer you outspeed.
Gotcha. And so you actually have it set up to where it calculates, regardless of whatever speed you put into your Bernard, it's always going to set it to 1 speed lower. Is that right?
Correct. So, awesome. Like right now, he's at 309. That's automatically going to be set to 308.
Good deal. And so when, coming up with something like this to helping people out, and stepping aside from the actual calculator itself, for your personal experience here, what was like the biggest thing that you felt like people misunderstood with regards to speed tuning?
The biggest thing I would say people misunderstood is in Guild Wars. It's actually, to me, just as important in Guild Wars as it is in Arena. A lot of people know, like, okay, I need to sync my Bernard, my Lucians to my Bernard, or things like that. But people don't think about it, especially on like Guild Wars defenses where they're using Orions. A lot of times, if I'm fighting, like, let's say a G1 guild or something like that, I can set a Chloe in with a speed leader against a Sierra Orion, and I might cut in between that Sierra because he didn't think to get his Sierra speed tuned with Orion. So things like that to me is what really makes or breaks some Guild Wars defenses. Most people understand on AO, and it's kind of the same thing with AD. It makes sense to have everything speed tuned on AD because if you get that first turn, you want all of your, if you're using a buffer, you want all of your monsters going. You don't want just like a couple monsters going and then, okay, their enemy Bernard gets to buff and then his whole team gets to go. So that's the number one thing I see, is that people aren't syncing their defenses and they're just syncing their offenses. But as far as just speed itself, I would say the biggest thing that people don't get is Bernard basically cheats. And if you look at Bernard, we have the unit must be 75%. If we go to the next page, which is the Orion, Tiana, Camilla,
Right.
those buffers are the same exact amount of buff. They're 30%, but they don't bring that speed buff. Now, that speed buff is a difference of 7% you need to get your units max of. So all Orion, Tiana, and Camillas, you need to be 83% instead of Bernard, where you only need to be 75. So that's the one big thing I see, is a lot of people might pull like an Orion and they're like, all right, I'm going to put my fastest Swift runes on him. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have anything synced to it, it doesn't really make that much sense.
Yep. Actually, that's one of the issues that everyone has been questioning me for so long. I've always ran a violent around because my focus has been on Guild Wars, and while I can definitely switch my Bernard runes to Orion and do like some kind of Sierra Orion X or whatever like that to make it work, my third member would never be synergized properly. So it's just, what is the point? Speed gap is just going to kill me. So.
And that's one of the things we touched on before. It's if you have a 300 speed Bernard, but your Lucians are plus 75 speed, there's almost no point in having a 300 speed Bernard, because, yeah, you're going to get the first turn, but then none of the rest of your monsters are going to be able to move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what's your take on this, too? Because, again, like I said, this is Theorycrafting Thursday, so we kind of throw this out, too. Obviously, with regards to speed tune and whatnot, it's inevitable. Certain units, and people already do at this time, this is nothing new or exciting, but certain units, while it's always been kind of well understood that they should be in some kind of attack, crit damage, attack format or whatever, certain units, in order to get the desired speed tune or whatnot, you essentially have to sacrifice quite a bit of attack power to speed tune. While some may criticize that aspect, I feel like depending on what your composition is made of, depending on what your goal is to do as far as take it out, if you can get yourself a speed tune composition that's going to allow you to do enough damage to essentially take out maybe 2 or even possibly more, I still think it's almost worth your while to play around with speed-based DPS in that aspect when it comes to offense. What do you think about that?
My view is always, it doesn't matter how good a slow damage dealer, how much damage he does, it doesn't matter if he can't get his attacks off. If you need to run speed on 2 to get yourself speed synced, it makes much more sense to do, even if it's 10,000 less damage, it makes more sense to get that speed in there so that you can get your attack off instead of not attacking. Right. I would also suggest, like, let's say the fastest you can get a Lucian, even with speed on 2, is like 160 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It might make more sense to make a really fast Chloe than make a really fast Bernard. Because that way you get to dodge all the buff removal teams, but that way your Lucian will get attacks off instead of just sitting there and getting killed before he can move.
Yeah, for sure. Lord knows I've tried to play around with some AO teams and whatnot with utilizing Bernard, and there's just some comps where there was no way that I can get the speed boost in, get my attacks in before like their Veramos interrupted me and took off all the defensive breaks. So I had to do some like Chloe approach or whatnot with a slower setup, so I can just wait for everybody to go and then land all my stuff in. So let's see.
There's one thing I do want to talk about, and that's all the way at the end of the list right there, which is the Bastat. Brand new unit, brand new buffer. Now, this is what I came up with her testing or using my sheet. I came up with you got to be 86% of her, which if you click on Megan, I believe it's 89.
I think it is 89. Off the top of my head. Well, this is the double one. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong
Megan's
one.
Right next. I think it's 89. Yeah. So 89. I came up with 86, and it's really 85.5. But just to be safe, I said 86. But that's what I found, that your people have to be within her to not get interrupted. And then Bernard and Bastet together, I believe it's another 2 or 3 speed better if you click on the Bernard and Bastet one, which is 2 over from where you are right now on the sheet.
Yeah, 61 to 74.
She is 61 versus the Megan, which I believe is 64. If you click on the Bernard and Megan.
Yep.
Yeah, so 64. So there are it's 3 speed. You're basically 3% you're gaining, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually quite a bit when you actually start putting them in. Because if you have a 300 speed Bernard, 3% is a pretty good amount of speed. I mean, that's not a ton of speed, but I think it's 10. I think it's 10 speed that you might be able to get away with not using the stat instead of Megan. So that does make a difference when you're talking about using a double buffer versus or using those two as double buffer. So if you're one of those lucky people who has the stat and you have Megan, I'd probably suggest using the stat over her because you can sacrifice that 10 speed to maybe get a little bit more attack power, a little bit more crit damage, and do a little bit more damage. So it makes it a little bit easier on you. And she's got a little higher base speed, so it's going to be easier to make her fast as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm definitely utilizing her now. Megan's kind of is a little bench warmer now. I still have her on Will, but I have Bastet on my like second or third fastest Swift set, so she's been pretty darn fun. Um, for some of the newer players, mid-range players and whatnot, you're starting to look into the speed tutor and whatnot. We just got done talking about the Swift or that Swift aspect, but the speed aspect and the fact that certain compositions might force you to play with that speed rune on two just so you can get things synergized. Don't think that that is the only way to get it done. I'm an extremely big fan of getting the work done when it comes to Swift sets if you can. We've been so set on this Fatal Blade, Rage Blade, or whatever, and trying to get this max damage, but then get the speed that we want. Whereas some of you guys might have been fortunate enough to get the raw stats that is benefited from having a Swift set in order to get that speed tuning where it needs to be. So if you're one of those people that has some decent Swift runes and whatnot, maybe it doesn't have crazy amounts of speed, but you're able to, put that 4 set on there to get the speed that you need, something like a Swift Blade or whatever like that. Take a look at it. Take a look at your runes and whatnot. Play around with it. You never know. You might find yourself running an attack, crit damage attack, Lucian or something like that without running speed on 2 and getting exactly the speed that you need.
I know there's a couple people I've seen with attack, crit damage, attack Lucians with like, we're talking plus 14, plus 1500 attack that are about 120, 125 speed. Now that's that's obviously super endgame, but it is possible. It's much easier to get those type of stats on a speed set where you're gaining that extra 25% speed. It's so much easier to run attack, crit damage, attack a little bit faster on a Swift set than it is, and that's late game as well. I mean, that's not just for early game.
Right.
There's a big benefit to running Swift attackers.
Mm-hmm. No. And I was going to say, I mean, obviously we won't get too much into like the beginner aspect of whatnot. I mean, those first 5 stages in the scenarios, that's kind of like the basis for everything that we're utilizing like in the early game, climbing up or whatnot. So the fact of the matter is that early game farming at Giants B10, it does you more good than you can imagine. And so if you're fortunate enough to get some of those runes and you start incorporating yourself, start working out, working your way on over to the PvP aspect, you're definitely going to get a nice jump if you can land yourself some high quality runes. So what do you think, BH? Is there anything else that you wanted to test?
The other thing is I just want to throw like let's just do a Bernard and Bastet real quick.
Okay.
The big thing is when you're using double buffers is that most of the time you want to be over the low limit. So like it's 61% to be Bastet. Ideally, to count for Nemesis, you want to be pretty much a lot higher than that 61%. But when you're using double buffers, you can get the benefit of doing, like, let's say we're doing a Guild Wars offense, a Bernard Bastet Lucian. We're doing a single Lucian offense. You can get that, especially in Guild Wars, you can get that attack, crit damage, attack Lucian in there on a Guild Wars team using that double buff versus only using a single buffer as well. So why don't we just go ahead and throw a Lucian in there?
Okay. Excuse me while I type this Lucian in.
All right, and so let's say that Bernard, let's go ahead and just throw runes on him however fast you want him to be. Just go throw some runes out there on him. Or you can just say, let's say he's at 156 right now. Let's just say you can throw in...
there you go.
All right, so we got 179. So let's go up to Bernard here. And let's make Bernard about 280. So why don't we you can just go ahead and add in 124. Just type in 124. It should put him up at 280. And then let's put Bastet at plus 100. Okay, so Bastet is going to be way above. So then we've got Lucian right there at 63. Now, did my calculator fail me? Oh no!
This
Of
is
course,
same thing
it
as the other
failed me
one.
again.
It's not showing the guild war like if it was to do three man guild war. Yeah,
That's all right. It failed me again. But if you do a team like that right there, so Lucian's still above that 61% in that third spot, that is still going to be synced for Guild Wars, and he's going to be able to do a lot more damage, and he's got 179 speed, but as you can see right there, that's basically an attack for damage attack with some pretty good speed subs, but not amazing. But that's synced now with the 280 speed Bernard. So most likely you're going to get that first turn in a Guild Wars, and Bastet's be able to bump you up, and then you have your attack for damage attack Lucian, hopefully then be able to clear the board. So that's an underrated part of using the double buffers in Guild Wars. Of course, that's a very YOLO comp, and you got to be able to have a Lucian that does a lot of damage in order to do that. But it is an effective way to reach those speed caps without having to go crazy speed.
right, and that's where it comes down to. If you're going to sacrifice a potential threat on your team to go ahead and get the job done, and you're using something like a Lucian that can really wreck face or whatnot, making sure that you have everything fine tuned so that you can get yourself that attack or damage attack combo and do some good DPS regarding ignore defense. It's going to work out definitely well. I am a big advocate. If anybody's been watching my YouTube channel, I'm a big advocate of face rolling Lucians into silly comps, so you probably shouldn't be doing it. But when you have the understanding that when you understand how much your unit can do damage wise in comparison to what you see in the meta and how people essentially ruin them, more or less how they ruin their monsters and the HP that they're running and whatnot, it can still be a win for you. So it's definitely exciting.
Yeah, and then this is just one other thing I just wanted to throw out there. Of course, I noticed that we picked a page where my enemy buffer is also messed up. That's a third fail so far. There's a reason I'm an epic fail.
Exactly.
All right, so if we go back to the Bernard page, I know that page is working for some reason. Just breaking everything today. All right, if you change that Bernard to being 286.
286.
So let's just delete a couple runes there. So we want him to be...
All
right, so he's 286. So now, if we go look at turn 5, so he is at 100.1. The enemy Bernard is at 99.75. If you go look at that Lucian, the last Lucian, he's at 84%. But you see how much higher attack bar is? So let's drop that Lucian down to probably go 110, maybe. That might drop us around 75.
Let's see, 110 here.
All right, so we still got to go with maybe 100. I wish I could do math like that in my head, but I can't.
Do you want it a little bit lower? 95 maybe? Let's see. Oh, shoot, we done screwed up.
There we go. Nope, keep it there.
Oh, you want it? Okay.
Yep, okay. So now, he is not synced. But our Bernard is at 286, which means he is maxing at turn 5. So he's got 100% attack bar. The other Bernard does not. So now, as you can see, that Lucian is under synced, so he's not above 75%. He is still going to outspeed that other Bernard because he is not maxing until a turn later. So you gain a tiny bit of speed advantage when you're fighting monsters if you're above that cap. And what I mean by that cap is that 286 to go from turn 6 to turn 5 when they're maxing, you're going to gain a little bit more or even more. So let's say you're above 286 and you fight a Bernard that's 270, you will be so above them when you're capped because they're not even maxing until a turn after you, right, that you don't even have to even come close to getting interrupted. Now, the difference is when you guys are both at that same cap, that is when Nemesis plays a huge part. So those numbers I gave out earlier, which I'll just throw out again one more time, which is, if I open up the right page here, it is 358 for turn 4, 286 for turn 5, 239 for turn 6, and 205 for turn 7. That makes a huge difference in your Nemesis. Because if you can get over that 239 to make, let's say your Praha, so it's maxing at turn 6 instead of maxing at turn 7, that is a big number to be jumping over as far as Nemesis defenses go. because then you've already caught up that extra 7% of your attack bar than you would have, or 7% of your total speed. So whatever your tick would be. So I believe, let's see, he's taking at 20% or taking at 20 at 286. So let's say you're taking at like 18 or 19. You've already got that extra 18 or 19 being over that speed cap when you turn like max turned on 5 instead of max turning on 6. So you got that extra little bit that then when you get hit with Nemesis, that's why you take their turn. So those are big for Nemesis. So again, if you want running like a Nemesis, Will, Praha as like arena defense, your goal is really to try to get her over 239 total speed, that is. So that's including your speed tower, because then you were going to take that turn earlier than you would if you were, let's say, 238.
Very, very interesting, sir. That's crazy. The power of Nemesis and how it can really destroy you, but if you got everything synergized, you're gonna do well, and that's what this tool is here to use. Right on, my man. All right. So unless you could think of anything else, man, I think you really wrapped it up there. I appreciate all the time and effort you put into making this for the community.
Yep, no problem. I'll try to fix all my fails before
Yeah.
this comes out, which won't be too hard. But I'm not an epic fail if I don't fail, right?
That's it. And you know what? I want to give a quick shout out to all the people that did contribute, just to giving him some updates or tweaks as far as the original one. We had a really amazing response when we put out the first version, and he's done a lot of updating since that time. And so even now, after tweaking some more things, now I'm looking forward to seeing for some of those math wizards and PhD people out there with crazy knowledge there, what things can we do, what things can we put out there as far as information, some feedback for Badhands so that we can even improve this that much more. What kind of things would you like to see? Let us know. Let us know in the comment section down below. We'll be sure to hit you back up and make sure that we can incorporate it into a next version. But until that time, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, hit up in the top right. You're going to go ahead and see Badhands' link for his Summoners War channel. If you're a big advocate of trying out some new and exciting monsters, take a look at his 6-star justification series, in addition to checking out some of his good war videos, all right? That is it. We are done. It's your boy, Childish, and Badhands with ChildishPlays checking out. Take care, and we will see you next time, guys. We're out.